Good morning. Welcome to Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace. Welcome to the soul of Sunday. We are Unitarian Universalists. Ours is a historic faith with a progressive theology. We affirm the worth and dignity of every being and that we are all deeply interconnected. We are bound to one another not by creed, but by covenant. And we are called to answer the call of love with open minds, open hearts, and open hands. Whoever you are, those of all nations, all creeds, all colors, all kinds of love, you are welcome here. We light our chalice today with the words of Reverend Rebecca Savage. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.
We are so excited to have Jenna Crawford as our guest preacher today. Jenna is a UU seminarian at Boston University's School of Theology and will soon start a ministerial internship at First Parish Unitarian Universalist in Needham, Massachusetts. Before starting seminary, Jenna was an outdoor educator based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. When not in the stacks, in the theology library, or social distancing, you can find Jenna rock climbing, trail running, or listening to protest jazz music. Welcome, Jenna, and thank you for putting together this service for us. I'm so happy that we can be here Zooming to worship together. We're doing an awesome job staying together while we're apart. Thanks again and again to our extraordinary tech team. Rich Abreu, Sandy Dixon, Frank Lee, Art Nava, and Barb Seidel. They're making it all possible. If you haven't already downloaded today's order of service, there's a link in the chat, and it's also available on the homepage at ascboston.org. All of the hymn lyrics are included in the order of service and will be posted in the chat so we can sing together. And now please say hello in the chat as we continue our virtual greetings. Let's engage that Arlington Street spirit of welcome that transcends social distance as we greet one another heart to heart.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, given life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
It is now time for our treasured ritual of sharing community candles of sorrow and joy. These candles were submitted at ascboston.org. If you didn't submit your candle and have one you'd like to share this morning, I invite you to type it into the chat. In addition to sharing our sorrows and joys this morning, let's reach out to one another in the week ahead, staying connected. May these times remind us of how very precious this beloved community is. Despite having to be apart, may we stay very close. And now, in the spirit of invocation, let's join in singing Sanctuary. The words are printed in your order of service and in the chat.
Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Some of us come today with heavy hearts. We open our hearts to you. A candle of sorrow for the increasing instability of the situation in Afghanistan and for our U.S. soldiers. As we consider the ways our country is steeped in white supremacy, a settler colonial narrative, and an exploitive capitalism, we must also reckon with our entanglements with and complicity in militarism. We grieve for the reasons that send folks to war, but once they get there, for any increased threat of violence to their bodies, minds, and souls. An anonymous candle of sorrow, please send prayers and healing thoughts to my friend Keith's mom, who at 86 years old is having knee surgery in the next week. A final candle of sorrow and concern from Arlington Street Church, as this week we witnessed an all-time high in Florida's daily COVID cases, and we saw some hospitals across our nation hit their capacity. We pray for an end of divisive politicizing in the issue of a health pandemic and hope our country can come together for the sake of each other's safety. We think of all who are sick with the virus and all who continue to grieve loved ones. We send gratitude to all who are doing the hard work of social distancing and to all who are serving our nation as essential workers. We send our love to all who are suffering from fear and loneliness, and we pray that the spirit of love we know in our congregation can be felt around our country and our world.
Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Some of us come today in joy. We share your joy. A mixed candle as this week celebrates July 4th. At Arlington Street Church, we celebrate moments in our country's history and present that uphold opportunity, freedom, diversity, and love. We recognize that for so many, systems of racism and oppression crush the very values our country is meant to stand for. As we honor our country's birthday, we hope for and work towards more opportunity, more freedom, more diversity, and more love for all who know themselves to be Americans, hoping one day our country can live up to the values it professes. Our final candle of joy is a candle of great joy from Arlington Street Church for Caroline Miranda, whose second granddaughter, Addison Rose, was born last month. Congratulations and love from all of us at Arlington Street.
Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
For all the sorrows and all the joys we hold in our hearts, we light a silent candle to remember and to rejoice. May the peace of our sanctuary enter into our hearts as we share a quiet moment together, breathing our prayers for ourselves, for one another, for our country, and for the world. Amen. Let's join now in saying together the affirmation and covenant of this beloved spiritual community. The words are printed in your order of service and in the chat. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak our truths in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de nuestra congregación, y servicio es nuestro regalo. Esto es a lo que nos comprometemos, con vivir en paz, hablar nuestras verdades con amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain.
2 weeks ago, on the weekend of Juneteenth, John O'Connor quoted Frederick Douglass to us in his sermon. He quoted, "What to the American slave is your 4th of July?" In its original gendered language, I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. John reminded us that that was in 1852. In 1852, Douglass and his contemporaries were calling out a national origin myth. And the irony and injustice of celebrating an independence and freedom that was only extended to a select few and predicated on the labor and suffering of Black and brown bodies. And then a string of Black social gospelers through the ages, from Henry McNeil Turner and Ida B. Wells, to W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, to Nanny Burroughs, Mordecai Johnson, Howard Thurman, Martin Luther King Jr., Polly Murray, and so many others, preached the same message, each in their own time. And still, in 2020, we need to hear it again. Still in 2020, not every state has recognized Juneteenth as a national holiday much more worthy of its name than yesterday's Independence Day. John said, "It is time for a new American social contract." That is part of the work that lies before us, yes. And history tells us that just as the settler colonial expansionist project built on an idea of white supremacy is as old as this country, so too is the act of resistance, which has already had more radical supporters than we will ever know or that history has ever bothered to record. On June 7th, Black and interfaith clergy in the greater Boston area organized what they called the Boston Black Memorial, a mass funeral procession in which they drove 3 hearses through Boston neighborhoods in honor of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, killed by police brutality in Glynn County, Georgia, Louisville, Kentucky, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. The procession ended with a memorial service at Bethel AME Church in Jamaica Plain. Reverend Mariama White Hammonds, founding pastor of New Roots AME Church in Dorchester, preached at the service. And it was her sermon that first, for me, eloquently connected the work of racial justice to running a marathon. She preached, "See, when we pass mile 1, we will no longer have to explain why all lives matter until Black lives matter. When we hit mile 2, there will be not a single police force in the country where chokeholds are allowed. At mile 3, we will stop putting our immigrant siblings in cages and keep families together. And at mile 4, we will no longer use our prisons as detox facilities, but fully fund rehab and addiction support." After the sermon is where the service began to look a little different than our UU services. The sermon gave way to prayer and spirited singing, to turning to God and turning to what Reverend Mariama calls their cloud of witnesses for guidance. And that's where we as UUs often get caught up. When it comes to building up stamina, where do we turn for guidance? Turn for what Reverend Mariama called spiritual oxygen. Turn when we have realized that we cannot go it alone. The hymn that we sang earlier, "Guide My Feet," is a spiritual of resistance that we as UUs have borrowed from the collection of Willis Lawrence James, who was a music educator at Spelman College in the mid-1900s and did amazing work retrieving and preserving Black folk songs along the levees of the Mississippi River. This hymn was inspired by a passage in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament, Hebrews 12. It reads, "And let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith." So in Willis Lawrence James's original conception, it was "Guide my feet, Jesus, while I run this race." We as UUs have adopted this hymn as our own, but have never really been clear about how the theology translates. As Unitarian Universalists, some of us believe in God, others of us in something you might call divine love or the spirit of life. Others of us still are theologically humanist and believe in the transcendent spiritual power of communities gathered in love and in protest. We are agnostics, believing that nothing can ever be known about the existence of God, and atheists, ultimately refuting the existence of God altogether. We might also carry dual identities with us and believe in gods of other traditions, with other prophets and messengers. So when we sing out, "Guide my feet," who are we as Unitarian Universalists calling out to? Who are we humbling ourselves to? Because I wager that if we are going to sing these borrowed spirituals at all, we have to honor them well, by understanding them, by understanding our place as it relates to them, and by reflecting on what we will do. For those of us that have more privilege, what we will do with our bodies, and for all of us, what we will do that aligns the lyrics and our integrity and our call to be in this world. So when we sing out, "Guide my feet," who are we as Unitarian Universalists calling out to? It is a powerful spiritual practice to admit that we are not in charge, to humble ourselves to something, and on the long road to becoming the anti-racist congregation, denomination, and nation that we are called to be, it is the only way, especially for us white folks. If you believe in God, then you might sing, "Guide my feet, God, while I run this race." But even if you don't, all is not lost, because our second of 6 UU sources are the words and deeds of prophetic women and men, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. It is all in there. Ancestors, saints, and prophets, guide my feet. From our own UU history, we can call on the witnesses of Egbert Ethelred Brown from the Harlem Unitarian Church, the first Black Unitarian fellowship in North America and the best example of the Black social gospel that our denomination has ever known. We can try to make right the ways that he was wronged in his ministry with us when we do. Or of Mark Morrison Reed, the courageous historiographer of our faith, and one of the ministers who has long pushed us to lean into the better angels of our nature. And prophets in our own time, Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Patrice Kahn-Cullors, the 3 co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, who will say unequivocally that theirs is a spiritual movement. Drawing the circle closer and closer to home, we can call on our own church elders, local and national, to guide us in our journeying. During the last service of our regular church year, where we commemorated the 50th anniversary since the first Boston Pride and reflected on the ways in which liberation and justice for our LGBTQ siblings and our siblings of color have long been bound up together, Julia Simon posted in the chat, and I share again here with her permission. Our queer elders inspire me to keep fighting. They fought for us, and now we fight for the children. Our beloved Arlington Street Church elders, guide my feet. UUA elders in Drum, Diverse and Revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministries, and Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, guide my feet. And still, closest to home, we have another option. We have our chalice circles and accountability partners, our communities of practice and our communities of care. On communities of care at the recent Berry Street lecture, Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson urged listeners to seek relationships that are supple enough to withstand all the ways that we each fall short, but relationships that also lure and entice us into action. This could be a small group or just one person. Communities of faith and partners in accountability, guide my feet. And by the way, this particular race, of course, is one where we don't need to be able to walk or run even a mile to participate. In another sermon I heard last week, the Reverend Mariela Perez-Simons explained that revolutions are always sustained by people taking up different and necessary roles based on what they are uniquely good at. This moment, she reminded us, needs all of us. So why do we need guidance along the way? UUs have long talked about interdependence through the lens of our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of creation of which we are a part. But when we talk about interdependence, we don't often also talk about humility, about how we need each other because not only is it lonely going it alone, not only is our voice dull and ineffective alone, but we are also finite alone. I'll always remember during my first year of seminary, my professor of modern theology, Dr. Wesley Wildman, saying to us, you see, if you take intersectionality seriously, your finitude is non-negotiable. Your finitude is non-negotiable. You end somewhere. There are some things that you can just never know, given your particular social location. And when I first heard this, I have to admit, for a while, that was pretty destabilizing. I got to a point in my early 20s, fresh out of college, that both in my adult life and my life as a seminarian, I just wanted to show that I could do it. On the one hand, I wanted to show that I could adult capably, that I knew my way around a checkbook, a pair of jumper cables, a crock pot, and an H&R block. And I never grew up or lived in a house prior to this current apartment that had a garbage disposal. So instead of figuring out what it was all about, I just avoided it for an entire year, too embarrassed by the facts that I didn't already know. For my roommates currently watching, everything might just make a little more sense now. On the other hand, in UU and in seminary spaces, I thought that the best way for me to be an ally was to show that I already knew how to act. I already knew what to say, even in settings or in conversations extraordinarily new to me. But of course I didn't. And in the process, on both accounts, I closed myself off to more learning. Realizing that your finitude is non-negotiable, that you end somewhere, can either be destabilizing or liberating, And oftentimes it is a little bit of both, because it adds meat to the platitude that we need each other. And the more that we can get over the fragility that comes from needing to be perfect, the more clearly that we will be able to see the insidiousness of the violence of a racialized state. We will see it when there is a knee on a Black man's neck, but we will also see it in under-resourced school districts and in voter suppression. It is a powerful spiritual practice to admit that we are not in charge, to humble ourselves to something. And on the long road to becoming the anti-racist congregation, denomination, and nation that we are called to be, it is the only way, especially for us white folks. God, ancestors, saints, prophets, our Arlington Street and UUA church elders, communities of faith, partners in accountability, guide my feet. Because on the marathon of racial justice ahead of us, Reverend Mariama continued. At mile 5, we will be as quick to support the small businesses in Nubian Square as we were to protect the luxury shops on Newbury Street. At mile 6, no child will go to school hungry. At mile 7, your zip code will not be a predictor of your health outcomes. At mile 8, we will assure that all people are paid a living wage, which allows them to work one job and take care of their families. At mile 9, we will get serious about mitigating climate change in solidarity with many coastal cities like our own. And at mile 10, wait for it, our congregations will no longer be divided along lines of race. Our U theology draws so much strength from our emphasis on reason and on science, but in times like this, we cannot do without prayer. We cannot do without our communities of care, without our teachers, without the people who hold us accountable, and without forgiveness and the gentle return when we misstep, based on our shared humanity, which we believe extends even to ourselves, based on a deep, deep reverence for learning, and based on seeing healing and justice as processes so much bigger than ourselves that we delight not in completing them or in performing them, but in just waiting for a moment into their waters. May it be so, and amen.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet
Each of us has the power to make a difference, to do our part to strengthen the safety net that holds us all. Your generous enthusiasm and support for everything Arlington Street is doing to uphold and uplift us, keeping us strong and connected, is deeply appreciated. All of us opening our virtual wallets and giving our hearts continues to make it possible for us to thrive in these difficult days. Each week we fill the virtual collection plate, and the generosity of this beloved spiritual community never ceases to amaze us. We know these times are hard, and they are affecting each of us differently. As we continue to live through this pandemic, we are reminded that community is a place to hold each other when we can, and to be held by each other when we need support. If this is a time when you can give, please take a moment now to text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 617-300-0509. Scan the QR code in the order of service or click the yellow donate button on the bottom right of the homepage at ascboston.org. Here's that number again, 617-300-0509. Thank you for your generosity. After you make your gift to sustain our beloved community, please continue to share in the chat what inspires you during these difficult days.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
At the close of today's service, during virtual coffee hour, an invitation will appear on your screen inviting you to join a breakout room. This is an opportunity to visit with each other in a smaller, quieter setting. If you click yes, you'll automatically find yourself there. You can just say hello, or you might want to share a thorn or a rose from this past week, what's hard and what's good. Please be sure to leave time for everyone to speak. I'll try to get around to each breakout room. After a few minutes, you'll be invited back from your breakout room to say goodbye to everyone. There are so many great moments of connection happening this week in the Arlington Zoom room. Thank you to all who are serving as the hosts this summer to keep these programs going. A full list of events and links to the Zoom room can be found at ascboston.org. Whether you have been a part of our community for decades or whether today is your first service with us, all are welcome at any of our weekly events. Reverend Kim and Reverend Beth invite you to join them for iced tea in the Arlington Street Zoom room this coming Wednesday at 5 p.m. Bring your own tea. I look forward to seeing you here next Sunday morning when we will have Erica Roselong preaching her sermon, Trust. Remember, my friends, love is the spirit of this congregation, and we are all in this together.
Lift every voice and sing, tears in heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the face that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, fair in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat and not a weary feet, come to the place for which our Father sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where a white gleam of a bright star is cast. God of our wearies, God of our silent tears, thou who hast bowed on us from the way, thou who hast by thy might lead us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray, lest our feet stray from the places, God, where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the word, we forget thee.
benediction today is from both the Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt and the Imam Dr. Asif Hirani. By no means are we Unitarian Universalists perfect. We often fail as much as we succeed. Yet even when we have broken our vows 1,000 times, we return to this essential work of justice and liberation for all. We do the work best when we remember what church is and what church is not. Because spirituality without activism is useless, and activism without spirituality is ingenuine. So let us keep this faith, beloveds, and pass it on. The service begins when the service ends. Amen.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.